the podcast to fill my brain. Movies and Task, Reddit, Minute of Sports, betting $1 and Joel the Game, Quora and questions from real listeners, all that and more on Joel the Podcast. Hello everybody, I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast,
Joel.
Welcome to episode 106 of Joel the Podcast. We're here today on a beautiful Saturday morning, or whenever you're actually listening to this. I feel like, am I forgetting something, or do we just jump right into it?
I feel like this in itself is kind of becoming a meta bit, right? Where
I always forget what I'm supposed to say here, and then we talk about what I'm supposed to say.
We start really strong with the prescribed opening, and then there's just some period of us fumbling around.
I know that I've explained this before on the podcast, but it's because I expect to say the name after we introduce ourselves, but it's already done. We've already said this is our podcast, Joel. I expect to say, welcome to episode 100. This is episode 106 of Joel the but I'm just like, this is episode 106. All right.
You know what? So when I listen to other podcasts, a lot of the time they'll do like the intro, and then there's a quick sponsor bit. So maybe we should come up with some kind of very real sponsor that we've been sponsored by to sponsor the video.
You want to do it right now off the top, or are you saying in the future we should do that?
Well, it's certainly in the future. If you've got any sponsors that I'm not aware of, feel free to break them out here, right now.
I do not have any sponsors, unfortunately.
We're sponsored by not being spontaneous enough to think of sponsors. So.
Yeah, if you're interested, though, in sponsoring Joel the Podcast, send us an email. You can find it on our website, alexandalex@joelthepodcast.github.io/alexandalex@joelthepodcast.website/index.html.
Nice.
Just head on over there, follow the link to our email, and let us know. We'd love to have you. We would be happy to sell out our podcast for money. So.
Absolutely. All right, well, now that we've got all that boring financial stuff out of the way, I think we can dive right into the Sports Minute.
The Sports Minute.
Yeah.
Sponsored? No.
The Sports Minute, sponsored by still not being spontaneous enough to
all
think
right,
of a
I'm
second
pulling up
joke.
my timer. Here we go for 1 minute.
All right.
Are you ready?
Yep.
I'll let you start, and then I'll jump in. Here we go.
Sure. All right, so you guys remember how the last time we podcasted, we went on and on about the sports news of basically the century. Steph Curry chipping in that 93-yard
Unbelievable.
shot. Truly incredible. And it's just come to my attention very recently here that in the next PGA video game, which apparently there are PGA video games, that's also come to my attention. But they're finally recognizing his true talent and making him a playable character, and I'm looking at the time, so I'm going to stop talking about this now. You got 20 seconds.
I'm really excited to play Steph Curry when I get the next PGA game when it comes out.
Oh, for sure.
Also, the NFL has started and 4 games have been played. Very exciting. Also, the baseball playoffs start tomorrow. Very exciting. Also, the NHL and NBA have both started. Very exciting. And we have 4 seconds left. So, I think that was an extremely successful Sports Minute.
Yeah.
Glad we could keep you informed about the important happenings in the sports world.
Yeah, lots going on. It's really tough to compress all of it into 1 minute, but we do it.
I know this is highly illegal, but I just have to say that the Phillies are in the playoffs for the first time in 11 years.
Wow, it's been 11 years.
I'm excited. So I mean, they're definitely going to lose in the first round, but I'm excited to watch a Phillies playoff game.
Yeah. All
right.
For some reason, I've had the impression that most, if not all, of the Phillies sports have been, or not Phillies sports, but Philadelphia sports have been kind of fine, recently. Like, I was surprised.
I
To hear
would get
that this
into
is
it,
their-
but we are definitely way past the sports minute, so
You know what?
I'll just have to leave you with that impression.
Fair
that you
enough.
have.
We're losing listeners by the minute because they're done hearing about sports. Let's
Do
get
we have
into-
any emails this week?
In fact, we do, and let's discuss it. So this email comes to us. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm gonna figure this out. But this email comes to us from Cephalopod Master. The subject line is "I'm a dumbass."
Okay.
So like how Gmail you get like a little preview of the
Yes.
email, right?
Like in your inbox,
Right.
right?
So I had like started to read it so that I knew what to expect, and then I actually clicked on it, and now it's just entirely blank.
It might be white text. See if you can highlight it.
Oh, it is. That's evil. Okay, I'm gonna try and read this line by line then to like surprise
Okay.
myself with it. Here we go. So it looks like it's a poem. It's roses are red, violets are dumbass. When are you coming back? Here in the middle of this Olive Garden. I bet you didn't expect that one. Please resume doing the Olive Garden quotes. Signed David. So okay, well that's a pretty clear mandate. We're gonna get back on the Olive Garden train.
And I think I have a good idea for what we should, not the specific quote, but in general what we should do for this episode.
All right, I'm gonna leave it entirely up to you then, and I won't think about it at all starting from this moment on.
It'll become pretty obvious at the end. Anyway,
A
okay.
plus email
Good
formatting
job.
there. You got me good, and it was very nice to be surprised by the email. Usually I'm.
we probably should address the question that he asked in it, which is when are we coming back? And the answer is right now.
Yeah. So here we are.
Although, for the record, we do have another episode recorded that was not posted, which I will not say whose job it was to do that, but it was someone's.
Yeah. So
I mean, obviously, if you're listening to this, we've already posted 105 by now, but
right. So I guess the answer then is like maybe a week ago, depending on how I space out the uploads. I don't know.
yeah. Also, probably should say this, but our podcast is not going to be once a week anymore for various reasons.
Right.
But it's probably going to be hopefully about our goal is like once a month. So this is the one we're recording in October. Don't know when it's going to come out, but and it's not going to be like the first of every month. It's just going to be whenever we can do it.
Whenever we feel like it, and
So I do earnestly apologize to any listeners who enjoy listening to our podcast. I'm not being facetious when I say sorry that we can't do it as often, but we can't do it as often.
right. So hopefully, we can pause here for a moment so that the listeners can stop crying and then get back to the action here in a second.
Anyway, let me resume my jerk podcast persona. Ugh. Sorry, I think I just blacked out there for a second.
All right. Well, that was our only email from the past several weeks. So keep them coming in. We do appreciate those, and yeah, I guess we'll have extra time to ponder the emails, given that we are podcasting less frequently now. So, really, you can really make us think. We'll be prepared.
Will we be prepared though?
Well,
We haven't recorded a podcast in 2 months, and you literally just read the email like live on the air for the first
live
time.
on the pod. Well, okay, so I take it back. Yeah, we're
Although, for the record, we did spend a fair amount of time preparing for this episode.
right. And now that we've said that, why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners what it is we're doing this week? I'm pretty excited.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So this is an idea that was brought to us by none other than Nathan himself. and it's a great idea. I can't believe we've not thought of it before. Today we are making a tier list. So for those of you unfamiliar with tier lists, basically every tier has a letter, the highest being SS, the lowest being F. I promise it makes sense. And we put things in a category in each tier. And the idea is that things that are in the same tier are roughly as good as each other, and they're worse than the things above them and better than the things below them. Pretty straightforward, kind of like a ranking system.
Yeah.
But why would somebody use this over a standard ranking system, Nathan?
Well, for one, what is a standard ranking system?
Like just being like, this is the best one, this is the second best one,
Oh,
numbering them.
okay. Well, I mean, let's be clear here. There are just too many movies to number them all individually.
Yeah, we didn't say that we were doing movies, but go on.
Okay, well, we're doing movies. Surprise. So, yeah, that's the main reason, is just, just minimizing the effort required to put things into an ordered list. It's much easier when you can have the same, order. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, movies are very diverse.
Right.
It's really hard to compare, for example, The Avengers to the B movie. They're just so different from each other.
Exactly, yeah.
And so that's why we have tiers instead of numbers. We could say, well, all these movies are kind of in the same general area. By the way, not necessarily saying we're going to do those movies or that they're in the same tier. Just two movies that I happen to think of off the top of my head that are different from each other.
We should just do this entire episode explaining the concept of a tier list while slowly spoiling more and more of what we've...
Anyway, now that we've told you the entire tier list, let's get started.
All right. Where do you want to begin?
Well, you know what? I already said it, so why don't we begin with it? Let's start with The Avengers.
All right. That's a good call.
Go ahead. What do you have to say about The Avengers?
Man, what is there to say? This is just... Okay, first of all, this movie came out in 2012 or something? I'm not looking it up. That's probably correct.
I think...
Or maybe
that's
2011?
Right. Yeah, because Iron Man came out in 2008, so that sounds about right.
I almost said that The Avengers came out in 2008, and then I realized that was definitely wrong. Anyway, the point is, this movie came out around 10 years ago, before the entire concept of a cinematic universe was a thing. This is the movie, right, that kicked all of this off. Well, not kicked it off, but kind of made it big, right? So
right.
A lot of people these days, there's just Marvel movies coming out left and right. Nobody really takes the time to appreciate any one of them as its own cinematic piece, because it's just this part of a much larger whole. But I gotta say that The Avengers, when it first came out, was kind of just groundbreaking in the the space that it covered, tying together so many different storylines, and man, it's just a huge movie, and it stands up for sure.
Absolutely, and a lot of people don't know the story of how Marvel Studios came to be, as opposed to just Marvel owning these characters.
Yeah.
And I also don't know the story, but I do know that it was not a simple matter for them to just be you know what, we're gonna actually just make our own movies and we're gonna have them be all connected. I know that was difficult for them to do.
Yeah.
I can only gotta give them props for that. And also, just as on a personal note, I think I've talked about before, but my favorite author, a lot of his books are interconnected in the same way that the MCU, well, not exactly the same way, but in a similar way to the MCU.
Yeah.
And I know that he is able to do that more, and because that's a popular concept now, that people are familiar with it. When he started writing this, this was before Iron Man 1 came out, it's cool to see how the popular culture is kind of caught up with that sort of thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, it really brought the concept into the mainstream, and um, I don't know, any final words? I just got to throw in here. I think it's just so cool that they got the actual Captain America to star in this movie.
I
Like
was
what a
just thinking
pull.
that, except about the Hulk. Like,
Yeah,
obviously, there's no CGI in the movie, so to have like the actual Hulk from real life, like acting in it,
yeah. I
pretty
mean
impressive.
that is absolutely massive. So yeah, just
Literally.
yeah, big thumbs up to the guys at Marvel. Um, I'm sure they've made some okay movies since, but this one really I think is one of gotta be in one of our top tiers, wouldn't you say?
I would agree. What do you think? I'm thinking that this should go in the A tier. How do you feel about that?
That feels right. You've got that big A logo for the Avengers. This
Mm-hmm.
has got to be A tier.
All right, you heard it here, folks. Avengers is in the A
A
tier.
tier movie.
All right, what do you want to do next?
You know what? So we were talking about all of these movies. They're just so different and hard to categorize against each other. Let's just take it in a totally different direction. We got let's talk about The Big Short.
Big Short. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we watched this movie together, and we actually talked about it on the podcast. But for those of you who don't know, The Big Short is based on a true story. It's about how the 2008 financial crisis happened.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of like big name actors, and they try to explain like complicated financial concepts in interesting ways. And I just have to say, I'm really trying hard not to make a pun about this, but this movie really fell short, for me, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help. I was physically unable not to like avoid saying that.
Yeah. I mean, it was right
But just
there.
like
Can't blame you.
just like talking about like stocks and tranches and shorts and like mortgages, like literally by the end of the intro sequence, I was not paying attention anymore.
Yeah. I gotta say, it's such a shift. Just imagine watching these movies back to back, right? Like you get to The Big Short, there's no action. It's all this, stupid, complicated banker guy stuff. Like the good guys don't even win in the end. Like everybody just loses money except for all of these guys that are mean and rich, and that's no fun. That's not what I want from my movies.
Yeah, at the end, so it's a spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, but at the end, the main character goes, "You know how many bankers went to jail? One." And like that's depressing after watching this whole movie where the bankers like committed this huge fraud and like basically stole a bunch of money
Yeah.
from investors. So, I would say this movie is not a complete like shit show. There is a redeeming quality, which is breaking the fourth wall. The characters sometimes talk directly to the camera. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
good to point out. That is a really nice redeeming feature there. So, I mean, I got to give it to them, even though a lot of the time when they're doing that, they're like explaining economics to me, which is just, what were my teachers breaking the fourth wall in school? Like, no, it's a cool concept, I guess. And
My teachers did not know that they were in a movie.
my teachers still have not seen all of that footage I have, and they never will.
What? Anyway, I would say, I don't know, what tier are you thinking for this?
Yeah, man. Okay, so I was thinking, honestly, this was gonna be a straight up F tier, but with that kind of, little redemption at the end there, I feel like we can cut it a bit of slack. Like, there were some moments there, right, where like I woke up and somebody was looking right down the barrel of the camera, and I felt like there was hope, and then the bankers got away with it. That being said, I can really only bump this up to D tier. That's the best I can do.
I think that's fair. Big Short, D tier.
Yeah.
Also somehow nominated for Best Picture, by the way.
Yeah, so for those of you keeping track at home, that means what does that mean? D tier versus A tier. Like A tier is better. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, so like imagine like grades, like A
Yeah.
is the highest grade you can get, even though in this system there are 2 tiers higher than A
Right.
for some reason.
And they're like
This is
S, which is kind of
an
weird.
SS.
Anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, A tier is good, D tier is bad. That's all you need to know for now if you're not familiar with tiers. Yeah. Let's move on to this next movie, which I have to tell you, this movie is rightfully one of the highest grossing films of its era.
Yeah. Of all time, really.
I mean, far from the talking and no action of The Big Short, there's a lot of action and interesting characters in this movie, and this movie is The Hunger Games: Mockingjay Part 2.
Yeah. Can I just say right off the bat, like here's how I want to lead into this. When I reached the end of Mockingjay Part 1 and realized that there was an entire next movie to go pay to see, I was ecstatic.
I was not there, obviously, because I didn't know you at the time, but knowing you, I can imagine what it was like.
Right, yeah. Just the screams of elation as I was escorted from the theater. It really, I feel like I'm getting a little emotional going back to that time in my life. Very, very different from where I am now, obviously, but...
Let me talk for a moment. Sorry, I just interrupt you. Let me talk for a moment about...
Shut up about your stupid emotions. Let me talk about something else.
I really wanted to pull that off without laughing. Let me just talk for a moment about Katniss Everdeen, who is obviously the main character of this movie.
Yep.
I would say that Katniss is one of the most interesting and developed characters that I can remember seeing in a movie. I mean, first of all, she's a woman, which is great. Too many men start The Big Short, full of men. I can't even remember if there's a single woman in that movie.
So many men.
But we've got a female main character. She's good at shooting bows and arrows. She has 2 guys interested in her.
That's very interesting.
That's what an amazing character arc.
Yeah.
That they made in doing that.
Really a brave choice, So few
Absolutely.
films have the guts to pull off a storyline like that. It's really, really amazing to see.
And I just, endings are really satisfying, and the way that Mockingjay just tied a bow on this whole trilogy of 4 movies.
Yeah.
Just really, I feel it's a masterpiece. That's all I can say.
Absolutely, yeah. Nothing really bad to say about this movie at all. I mean, other than the fact that they didn't decide to make a part 3.
They should have done that. All right. I mean, I feel like there's no argument here. This is clearly S tier, right?
This is S tier, 100%.
Cool. For those of you who don't know, S tier is above A tier.
Right.
For some reason. All right. It stands for super good.
Super good. And obviously then double S tier is super good.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Double S tier stands for super good.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I was going to try and think of something different from super good, but I couldn't. Let's go with number 4. What should we go with for our 4th movie?
Okay.
Here?
I feel like...
Okay, I'm just going to interrupt you right now. I think that we should go with Batman Begins.
Okay.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, oddly enough, it was. I was really on a roll with kind of the vibe that Mockingjay Part 2 gives me, and just another movie that captures exactly that same energy. Batman Begins, the first movie in the Christian Bale Batman trilogy. I gotta say, after all this time, still the best Batman. I don't think there's.
Can I tell you something? This is not a joke. This is legitimately what I thought when I first saw this movie. Was something along the lines of, I was surprised that they actually made a realistic portrayal of how someone could become Batman. like obviously Batman's like a fake character.
Yeah.
But like I was like, oh yeah, he was a businessman who ended up in this nondescript Tibetan like martial arts place, I guess. I'm saying this. I'm literally not joking that this is what I thought. By the way,
I mean,
it's funny to look back on now, but
yeah.
like, oh wow, it's like an actual realistic version of Batman. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, they really made you feel like you were becoming Batman.
Yes. But no, this is actually a pretty good movie. It has Liam Neeson in it, so that's pretty cool.
That automatically gets you up there, yeah.
It has, I mean, a machine that can vaporize all the water in a city, or is that a later movie? It's a later movie. What does this
that's
one have?
the. Wait a minute. No, that is this one, right? Because this is the one with Scarecrow, and they're trying to they put the drugs in the water.
Yep. You're right. Yeah. So they have a machine that can somehow vaporize all the water in a city. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the like
Batman. I mean, come on.
Batman's very good. Alfred also very good.
Michael Caine.
Yeah, he's a
oh my
classic.
gosh, what's his name? The guy who plays Lucius Fox. I literally can't remember his name. Tell me his name. I know you know
I'm
it.
blanking so hard. Also, for some reason,
I can't.
Morgan
tell if you're
Freeman.
Serious.
No,
Thank
I was
you.
serious. Until that moment, I couldn't.
I have to tell you, I'm really embarrassed to say this, but the name that kept coming to my mind was Nelson Mandela. And I knew it wasn't right, but that's just what I kept thinking.
Oh, man. All right.
Anyway, I don't know. With this movie, we're all over the place with this movie. It's pretty good. What do you think in tier-wise?
This Batman Begins is one of those movies that it just transcends tiers.
It simply defies tier-ness. It defies being put in a tier. I think we have to make up a tier for this. I think this goes in Batman tier.
It's got to go in Batman tier.
All right, there you go. We have Avengers A tier, Big Short D tier, Mockingjay Part 2 S tier, and Batman Begins in Batman tier.
Right. So, all right.
All right.
Let's keep rolling. I think let's talk about the Desolation of Smaug. So you know the Hobbit trilogy, right?
Right.
So I don't even know what the first one is called. I think it might just be called The Hobbit. No, it's called An Unexpected Journey, because that's like the subtitle of the book.
Yeah.
So that's the first movie. It's fine, right? Like, it's okay.
Sure.
And then there's obviously the third movie in the trilogy, which I know we talked up Mockingjay Part 2, but I don't know. Not the greatest ending in the world, right?
Right.
But the middle. You know, the very crucial story development and evolution of these characters that we get to see in The Hobbit Part 2, The Desolation of Smaug, is just, you know, I mean, this is another one of those, like, genre-defining moments.
Honestly, like, I would say, like, obviously the movie itself is really good, but I just want to talk for a minute about their decision to take The Hobbit, which is one book, shorter than all 3 Lord of the Rings books, by the way, and divide it into 3 movies. Because honestly, that was a genius move. That like, whoever decided to do that should be like CEO right now of something. I don't know of what, but definitely CEO of something.
The movie company.
Like just getting to see every individual story beat in excruciating detail.
Yeah.
That was I was literally in complete euphoria watching this movie. I think I mean, all 3 of them, obviously, but especially this one. Yeah,
I know we're not talking about the entire trilogy as a whole. We're really just, you know, tier list wise anyway. Obviously, we can't talk about it, but, you know, if there was anything they could have done, I think, to improve the quality of the trilogy, and I'm 100% with you there that this was the right call, is they really should have just made this movie 3 times. It was clearly the best.
Yeah. Now, the way we're talking about it, I can see it heading for S tier.
Yeah.
I do have one minor complaint that I want to throw in here.
Okay.
And it's with the name Smog or Smaug.
Right.
Because I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know whether it's Smog or Smaug.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Smog is like how I would read it, but I feel like I've heard Smaug, but maybe that's just what Lord of the Rings nerds say.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's your take on this?
No, I mean, now that you've said that, right? I wouldn't want to accidentally be like misconstrued as a Lord of the Rings nerd.
Right.
That would be, really uncomfortable. So
Right.
maybe the right call here is Smog.
See,
But
doesn't
then-
that sound too much like Smog, like
Yeah,
SMOG?
that's like just a different word. Ooh, I can see where, and I was feeling really good about this. We came in, I was feeling strong, but this might be a bit of a deal breaker. Just a bit. Like I don't want to penalize it too much, right? Because like
Yeah.
truly a
I
cinematic
don't know. It seems
masterpiece.
I'm
but-
just like sitting here and like my I mean, like, to be honest, my instinct is to drop it down to A tier. It just seems so silly to drop a movie down a tier because of like one word in the name. But like this is like clearly a crucial part of the story. Smaug is like a character in the movie. I think he's like the dragon or something. Is that right?
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
clearly this is like a major part of the story.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Let me say this: we would not create or place any movie in a tier just because of a word in the title, right?
Right.
There are clearly well thought out reasons beyond that.
Right.
However, given that this is he's such a central character in the story, literally in the title, like I think I can justify. I couldn't justify anything below A tier, but I think I can justify A tier here.
Yeah.
Because, again,
I
I would not do anything strictly based on the title, but this one goes a little bit beyond that, don't you agree?
Yeah. Like I said, my mind is hesitant, but my instincts, I agree with you. I think that this is, along with Avengers, this is an A tier movie.
Yeah. So Peter Jackson, if you're listening to this right now, who directed this trilogy and the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, by the way, in case our listeners are not familiar. But if you're listening to this, please email us and let us know how this name is pronounced. And we might consider raising this back up to S tier with a little bit of clarification there. So,
Yep. All right. There you go. Desolation of Smog, A tier. All right.
Smoog.
So for, I don't actually want to go to another movie next. I want to go to a group of movies.
Interesting. Okay.
And I really, similar to kind of the Batman tier kind of idea, I really just think these movies are just like on their own plane of existence, like not within the original tier system.
Okay.
And you can help me figure out what to name this tier.
Yeah.
So here we go. Here are the movies. Ready?
Yeah.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs,
Okay.
based on a book, by the way, in case you didn't know that. Nacho Libre. Okay, classic.
Yep.
Chicken Little
Gotcha.
and American Pie.
Interesting combo. Yeah. I can very clearly see the connection between all of these movies.
Okay, please help me because I'm not seeing
Yeah.
it.
This has got to be the food tier.
With the exception of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, none of these are about food.
Well, I mean, sometimes you've just got to make a judgment call, right? Like, I could see.
You know what? Upon further inspection, I can't do anything but 100% agree with you. This is absolutely the food tier of movies.
Good. All right.
Like, when you say food tier, literally, like, independent of these movies, just say food tier. Say it.
You want me to like say the words?
Just say the words food tier.
Food
Yeah.
tier.
Oh my gosh, these 4 movies are exactly what came to my mind as soon as you said
That's incredible.
that. I think that I cannot believe how accurate of a name that is.
Yeah.
All right, so there you go. We have another tier created for these movies: Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Nacho Libre, Chicken Little, American Pie, the food tier.
Great.
All right. Anyway, back to the traditional tier system.
Yeah, I feel like I can feel us starting to go off the rails a little bit. So let's go back to a classic, right? A real film, as they say.
Yeah.
And so let's jump back in with Inception.
Inception.
All right. So when I say Inception, what is the one word that comes to mind?
The one word that comes to mind with you to say Inception?
Inception.
I got nothing. My mind is entirely blank.
Yeah. See, that's how I felt when I watched this movie. There's just
Oh, that's clever.
yeah. I know our listeners are going to think we like pre-planned this or something, but we are.
Let me tell you something about the movie Inception. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm gonna let you finish, but this movie has Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Right.
And that is literally the only good thing about this movie.
For sure.
Let me tell you something. Listen up. Listen here, folks. In this movie, a character has a dream. And within that dream, one of the characters, actually the same no, it's a different character. Sorry, sometimes it gets a little confusing. Has a dream. And then one of the characters in that dream has a dream. And if you are falling asleep listening to all these talks of dreams, then I'm with you there, man. I really don't know what to say about this movie.
Yeah.
They were just like, let's just have all the characters sleep during the entire movie, and that'll be it.
Yeah, man, I almost don't even feel like talking about the movie anymore because like what else is there to say? Honestly, they didn't even pick good dreams, right? Like you could have made a cool movie with like interesting dreams. Like I had a dream last night. All right, so let me tell you about this dream that I had last night. It was I'm not big on the details because it's been a little while. You know how you forget dreams when you wake up? But like
I always forget my dreams so quickly. I remember them for like 15 minutes and then I'll be like eating breakfast and I'll be like, let me remember that dream that I was just thinking about 15 minutes ago, and I literally can't even remember what it was.
Yeah, but like okay, so usually that happens, right? But this dream that I had last night, I remember so many of like the random weird details, but not the overall plot line of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Interesting.
I was writing an essay for school, for like high school,
Right.
The dream like took place across the street from my high school.
You were writing an essay across the street from your house.
Well, I think I was writing the essay somewhere else, but we happened to be there for some of the dream. Like I don't remember the.
So you weren't actually writing the essay in the dream.
It was about writing an essay.
So were you or were you not writing the essay?
Well, I wasn't like sitting down with a pencil and paper. I guess it was.
So you weren't writing the essay.
Well, I mean, not like writing the essay, but it was a.
What else could that possibly mean?
It was about writing the essay.
All right, carry on. What other details do you remember?
Yeah, well, I was across the street from the high school, right? There were some other people there. I genuinely no idea who. I don't know if it was like people I knew or I can't remember anymore.
Sure.
That's not the important detail.
That's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I feel well. I mean, to be honest, I feel like I've now said everything that I remember.
So you remember almost nothing about the.
I drove a truck at one point. I was.
So you remembered something that you didn't mention.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Was I in the dream?
I don't think so. But I mean, you easily could have been because at that point in.
Frankly, I think that if I was in your dream, you certainly would have remembered me, and I'm really offended that I was not in your dream.
Well, what can I say? I knew I was getting the real deal tonight, so didn't want to ruin it by imagining anything less.
Anyway, we all know where this is going. Inception, F tier.
F tier.
Let's move on.
Let's see. Let's talk about So I actually don't know a whole lot about this movie.
Okay.
Um, but I figured we could cover it anyway because it seems like a lot of the big movies that you hear about in a year. I guess let me lead with the movie I'm talking about is La La Land, right? And
Okay.
I
Okay.
I feel like I've definitely seen this movie before at least once, so
Hmm.
we're pretty qualified to just like talk about it.
I think that this movie was on an airplane one time that I was in.
Yeah, that does
Not
seem like
necessarily was I watching it, but it was definitely on.
I would definitely agree with that. That this seems like an in-flight entertainment kind of movie, and I don't say that with any sort of negative connotation. Um, but it's not automatically a positive either. It's just kind of a neutral fact.
Kind of a neutral thing, yeah. Let me ask you this. What would you say is your favorite part of this movie?
Oh, I really like the land.
The
The
land?
land.
That's interesting because I was going to say my favorite part was the law.
Interesting. Which one?
I don't know. I mean, they're both pretty similar. I would say probably the first one
Okay.
though,
I
just because of the thing that happens with
Yeah,
it,
you had me a little
which we
worried
all
there the way
know.
you started that, but any true fan would have gone for the first one. So
Yeah.
that's how you can trust us. We may be joking around a little bit here, but we definitely know what happens in this movie.
You know what's crazy? I think the actor who's in this movie, I've seen him in other movies before.
Yeah, I mean you're probably right. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Wasn't he in that like so a couple of years ago? Do you remember that movie where I think he was in it? Do you remember?
Was he with that lady?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking
Okay.
about. Yeah.
Well,
I don't remember the name of it, but I know what you're
no,
talking
yeah, for
about.
sure. And they like do what they like go and there's the other guy. Um.
Did they see that
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
yeah, yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah, yeah,
about.
yeah. That's it. Oh man, we should have talked about that movie instead. I
If I could remember the name, we would talk
Yeah,
about it. I
yeah.
just can't remember the
Okay.
name.
Well, huh. I guess
Anyway, back to La La Land. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say this is kind of like a mid tier movie. Is that's kind of what I'm thinking? What do you think?
yeah. I if we've got to make a call, I think we've got to make the most um committal call, really demonstrate that
Hmm.
we were taking this one seriously and really
Yeah.
judging it critically, thinking about it in a intelligent way. And I think you can only do
How
that if
about what were you gonna
I
say?
was just I think we can only put this in the C tier. That's just my feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like maybe you were gonna go higher, but I think C tier is C for
C
committal.
for
C is
committal.
extremely committal answer here.
Yeah, see, I think you could easily go higher, you could easily go lower, and so that's you just got to commit. C. Cool. We are just flying through these. I'm feeling good. All right, we'll be back after a brief message from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by the little clothespin sounds that I've been making in the background this entire time. I don't know if anybody's able to hear this on the recording. If not, I'm going to sound absolutely insane. But I've been playing with some clothespins here. And you know what? They haven't paid me to say this, but clothespins, surprisingly useful. You can pin clothes. I know that's kind of in the name, but I tend to find that I pin like bags of food. You know how when you don't eat a full bag of food, you want to like close it and then, save the food for later, but you want to seal it in a reliable enough way that the food doesn't go bad. That's clothespin. You pin it shut. All right, Alex is back. That's fine. We'll just do another like buzz thing. Actually, that won't help at all. Actually, do it anyway. There you go.
All right.
Perfect. All right. Through the editing of through the magic of editing, this is going to be put together flawlessly.
All right, great. Anyway, here we go. Continuing on.
Yeah.
With the ninth movie that we're talking about today, assuming we count all of the food tier movies as one movie.
Which, why would you not? They're all clearly food tier.
Yeah, exactly. So, let's talk about the Bee Movie.
Bee Movie.
Now, this is a movie where a bee, like the insect,
Yeah.
is the main character.
Yep.
And this bee interacts with human people in a very weird way. I can't think of any other way to say that.
Yeah, it's not normal for sure. Slightly uncomfortable, but solid movie overall, I would say.
My favorite part was the entire script.
That actually was my favorite part too. I'm glad you said that. It is quite a short script to write out by hand if one were to do that.
On a chalkboard, for example.
Right. So yeah, just Bee Movie. I don't know. Any other thoughts?
I have no other thoughts about this movie.
My mind is literally blank. I feel like we're talking about Inception again. Bee Movie.
Except I feel like we're talking about Inception, except I don't hate myself while I'm talking about it. So.
And that alone is enough to keep it out of F tier. And you know what? I don't even think it should be down that low. I think Bee Movie, B tier.
Boom, coin it, put it on a poster. Bee Movie, B tier.
B tier.
I'm running for president on that slogan.
Yeah, that has the kind of like title of the episode energy, but I don't want to spoil it. You know.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I thought you were going to comment on my slogan on a running for president thing, because I think that quote is nonsensical and non-committal enough, but catchy enough to be a really good political slogan.
Bee Movie, B tier. Yeah, I mean, to me, that says I am sensible enough to take the easy route when it's available to me.
That's what I want in my politicians.
Yeah, like I don't want people who examine the issues. I want people who find the easy route and take it. So,
indeed. All right, give us our next movie. What do you think we should talk about next?
Okay. I feel like we've been, I don't know, trending a little bit downward in energy maybe the past handful of movies.
You're absolutely right.
You know what? It's time. Let's go for it. We're going to talk about National Treasure.
Oh my lord.
It is National Treasure time. Here we go. Should get that. Didn't we ask David to make us like a soundboard at one point with like maybe that was something totally different.
I have no recollection of that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe I'm making that up too, but it's a cool idea if you want to. I assume by the fact that it hasn't happened yet that probably doesn't want to. Seems like it'd be a lot of work. Anyway, National freaking Treasure. This movie has everything.
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
Number one. Number two, it also has treasure.
Treasure.
Needlessly complicated clues and puzzles.
The back of the Declaration of Independence prominently featured.
I have never ever wanted to see the back of the Declaration of Independence before this movie.
Yeah, and now it's literally, I have, like, I'm not even joking, multiple T-shirts of it.
That's very reasonable of you. I don't think there's any other reasonable response. Let me tell you something. There's a scene in this movie where Nicolas Cage's character, whose name is Ben or something, I think.
Yes.
He needs to get to the Declaration of Independence. And so he gets his computer buddy Riley, who's very funny, to sit in a bathroom stall, I think. Or maybe he sits in a van. No, he sits in a van for this scene. But with, like, on his little computer, and, like, they have, like, earpieces.
Right.
and he steals the fingerprint of the woman character, Diane Kruger's character, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But he like very slickly like steals that fingerprint off her glass
Yep.
and uses it to go through all this security. He has the building plans. The guy hacks. I have to tell you something. This scene makes literally no sense. Nothing in this scene is possible in real life. And yet, I find myself so compelled by it. Every single step of their plan, I'm like, yes, this makes sense. This is something that could happen. I am with this 100%. And it's literally unbelievable how every moment of this movie is like that. Every moment of this movie makes me think, this is so cool and realistic, when in reality, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, this must be how people felt when they were, listening to Mozart for the first time. Just such a revolution in the making of art. And, I feel like it's become kind of commonplace now to have that in your movies, but we forget, we forget that there was a time where National Treasure was the only one to really do it.
Unbelievable, monumental. By the way, did you see the Uncharted movie that came out recently?
I have not seen it, but I did I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's just good. I'm glad you've heard of it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the same vibe. It's not as good as National Treasure, but it's got a lot of the same energy about it, I think. So
yeah, that's it. I wonder if can you imagine? So I assume this means that you have seen it.
I have seen it. Yeah.
Okay, so pick literally any character in that movie and imagine that they were played by Nicolas Cage.
Oh my gosh. This would be one of the top movies of all time.
Just instantly elevates it to the next level, am I right?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. So we have not done this yet, but I think it's finally time. I don't know if you would agree with me on this tier.
Is
there
absolutely
really any question?
Time. Break it out.
Stamp of approval, double S tier on National Treasure.
Yes, and just to remind our listeners, that means super good.
Super good. And also that's higher than super good and
right.
A tier through F tier.
It's literally the highest tier. There's nothing above it.
Right. Cool. Well, we've got that out of the way. I'm feeling good. Let's go on to the next movie.
We're continuing into another great movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it is The Dark Knight. The movie following Batman Begins. With probably one of the best villains of all time, Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah, for sure.
But The Dark Knight attempts something that National Treasure attempts, but with much less success.
Okay.
Which is to have a completely unrealistic, compelling storyline. Like with National Treasure, like I said, every moment of it, I'm like, I believe it. Like, I follow it. Like, it makes sense.
For sure.
But, I don't know, National Treasure, when I see, a pile of money that's, the size of, a room, money is incredibly, you could hold, $10,000 in your hand easily. A stack of money that size is probably more money than there is in the entire U.S. I cannot believe how I don't know. It's clearly $100 bills too, right? It's not $1 bills in that stack.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to make a treasure stash, you got to have hundreds in there.
Honestly, as I say this, I'm actually kind of legitimately interested in estimating how much money that stack of money was worth. But anyway,
so actually, there's a quote. Speaking about National Treasure, there is a quote at the end of the movie where Riley drives off in his Ferrari, and he says that it cost 0.1% of the total amount of the treasure, and presumably we can look up what that car cost in 2003 or whatever this
Six.
was. So,
See,
and then we can do the math the other way, which is by, calculating the size of the room and kind of the density of the value, and see, if it checks out both ways, which I have to imagine it will, because such a well thought out cinematic masterpiece would not, miss a small detail like that.
I have to actually clarify this because I'm literally in shock right now. Are you claiming that the treasure from National Treasure is then liquefied meaning like turned into cash, into the pile of money that we see in The Dark Knight? Is that what you are saying?
Oh, that's very interesting. It definitely could have been. Is National Treasure part of the Christian Bale Batman cinematic universe?
I have never seen anything that would indicate to me that that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? Nicolas Cage, not in Batman. Christian Bale, not in National Treasure. The only way that makes any sense is if they are part of the same universe, and there's no real reason that Batman would interact with
A treasure hunter.
the treasure hunter, right? He literally only lives in Gotham City, and Gotham City is not on, part of the founding of America, I guess.
Well, I think this is a revelation that no one has ever discovered.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Listen up, you heard it here first on Joel the Podcast. National Treasure and the Dark Knight trilogy take place in the same universe.
Man, that is we started out making a tier list, but now we're just dropping truth.
I think this is a formality at this point, but give me the Dark Knight's tier list.
Yeah,
the tier, not list.
Really, it's just got to go in the Batman tier.
It's just got to go in the Batman tier.
It's the only thing that makes sense at this point.
It's just pile of money, good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do with it. It's a Batman movie. Batman tier.
It's a Batman movie, for sure.
And
Okay.
as we all know, only Batman movies go in the Batman tier.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to our next movie. This is a classic. I'm sure everyone has seen this movie, and so they'll have an opinion about where it goes.
Yep.
But we're here to give you the definitive answer, and that movie is Home Alone 3. Now, you're probably familiar with Home Alone 1.
Yep.
As, Macaulay Culkin, as a kid, gets left behind by his family, and robbers try to rob his house, but he sets, traps for them.
Right.
Fewer people have seen Home Alone 2, which pretty much follows the same formula, if I remember correctly. But I think, obviously everyone knows about Home Alone 3.
Yeah.
But why don't you just refresh everyone's memory in case they forgot?
Yeah, so Home Alone 3...
By the way, this is true and we're not making it up. Go on.
Yeah.
You can literally look this up.
Yeah, so Home Alone 3 is just different characters. It is not the third... It's not like the third part of a story, right? It's just a different story.
Right, so
they just do
Macaulay
kind of the same
Culkin's character
stuff.
is not in the movie. Instead, the movie follows a different child. I have seen this movie, and I'm trying to remember what it's actually about. It's a similar... Oh, this kid finds out... This is something like this. I know everyone knows it, so they're probably judging me for not remembering it, but... This kid, finds out that robbers are gonna rob one of the houses in his neighborhood, but no one will believe him when they tell him. He tells them, so he has to single-handedly stop the robbers from robbing the house. Something like that.
That seems believable.
Anyway, what a weird movie. Why is it Home Alone 3, but the main character, none of the characters from Home Alone's 1 and 2 are in this movie?
Yeah, it's just really a missed opportunity to continue to cash in on literally the best idea for a you know a children's franchise, children's movie franchise. You just stick with the formula and it prints money, and for whatever reason they just didn't. So
Right. I mean, so I do want to mention one thing. You mentioned the formula of Home Alone.
yeah,
They did pretty much stick to the same formula, and Home Alone is a good movie, so there is at least some redemption in that. In that it's kind of like the same. I get to see a kid beating up adults basically, which is
yeah, I'll
enjoyable.
I'll agree with that at least, and so you can't fault it for the premise at least, but the execution is just so weird that they only kept one piece of the winning formula. So man, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. I'm feeling kind of harsh. Maybe you can give a more fair assessment.
I'm just thinking D tier. Like I really
Yeah,
think they jumped the shark with getting rid of the characters, and really the only thing to redeem it, like I said, the Home Alone classic tropes. So that's kind of
yeah.
my thought.
All right, I can respect that.
Sweet.
Cool. Well, let's keep this rolling. We're down to our last five movies, so
Hmm.
let's dive in. Um, Next up, I mean, this almost needs no introduction. It's Cider House Rules.
Mm.
I think we all know, very very intimately the story of this movie. That both the plot of the movie and just kind of the inspirational making of, kind of behind the scenes, almost almost just as good as the movie itself. I really don't know that we need to get into too much detail here. Anything you'd like to say, really, before I almost feel just comfortable?
I mean, all I have to say about this movie is that the actors' performances are phenomenal. I mean, you've got
Absolutely.
Tobey Maguire,
Yeah.
you've got Paul Rudd, you got Michael Caine, and I am 100% not making this up. Macaulay Culkin's brother is in this movie.
What? Really?
Kieran Culkin. Um, this there's no doubt in my mind that this is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
I was brought to tears at multiple times, just from the amazing, real struggles that these characters go through and how they're relatable. Um, and I mean, I honestly think it was a travesty that it didn't win Best Picture. Um, it was nominated but did not win. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm welling up just thinking about this movie, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna say it, and you can disagree with me if you don't think this is true, but this is a double S tier movie.
Literally, I was thinking the exact same thing. SS
Awesome.
tier, one of the best movies ever made, right up there with National Treasure.
Absolutely. Yeah, those
A-
two really deserve to share a tier.
Absolutely. All right. And I think it's only fair for us to jump from one great movie to another. Let's go over to The Last Jedi, Star Wars Episode 8.
Oh yeah.
Now, I don't know where to start with The Last Jedi. First of all, the amazing character development that you have between Rey and Kylo Ren in this movie is just really cool. You can really see them developing a bond, which I won't spoil anything, but it pays off in the next movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, I mean, obviously it's a Star Wars movie, so you've got the opening crawl, you've got the music, you've got lightsabers, the Force. I don't know. I mean, I just cannot. I have a difficult time thinking of a single flaw in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, if there is one thing and I say this as literally only one thing, because I can see where we're going with this. Um, I gotta call it out. They killed Han Solo in the previous movie, so he did not, unfortunately, feature in this one as well. Sorry for that spoiler if anybody didn't know that. So, whoops.
Okay, I only have one more thing to say about this, then we can rank it.
Yeah.
Just like, so obviously, like when they announced that they were coming out with like episode 7, 8, and 9 of Star Wars, like there was a lot of talk about what it would be like. And it would have been really easy for the writers and producers of this movie to just be like, everyone's going to come see this movie no matter what. We can just do whatever we want. It would have been really easy for them to phone in just like some bland like story that no one even remembers, have very little character development, and just be like, it's a Star Wars movie, so it's good. But I cannot tell you how heartfelt, how complex, and just how amazing of a job the writers did on this movie. Like,
Yeah.
just like the ways that the characters interact, the interweaving storylines, the ways that they cinematographically, I don't know if that's a word, but the ways they use cinematography to just show the broad range of topics and emotions that they're covering in this movie.
Absolutely.
It's truly a work of art. That's all. I mean, it just is.
It just is. That's the fact. And I don't. This is, I gotta say, a little bit of personal bias, but I really got to come back. I know you're really laying on the praise. Maybe you even want this to join the double S tier. I feel like maybe this has to just be an S tier. Really feel like we're missing out on some Harrison Ford action.
I can respect that.
If there was one thing that I felt like this movie was missing at times, it was somebody to tell me whether or not that's how the Force works. And he filled that role so great in episode 7 that I felt his missing presence in episode 8, despite everything you like. I totally agree with everything you said, but I don't know, for me anyway, that's at least, like, I don't want to knock it too hard because, again, absolute masterpiece, but I say S tier. That's I think my take there.
I think that's fair. I'm not going to argue with you too much there. We'll put it in S tier.
Sure. Cool.
All right,
well,
we're almost to the end of this list.
Yeah, let's change gears. I know we got to fit this in here somewhere, so we might as well talk about it now.
Yeah.
The Martian. What do you got for me?
All right. I mean, first of all, this movie has nothing to do with Mars. I have no idea why they named it The Martian. I mean, it takes place on Earth.
Yeah, that did feel weird to me.
Maybe there was some kind of like I know it's based on a book, so maybe there was some kind of like reference in the book that explained that. But really in the movie, it made no sense. Leonardo DiCaprio phoned it in. Kate Winslet phoned it in. Matt Damon phoned it in.
Not the greatest performances I've ever seen, but I mean, the source material at least was pretty decent. Based on real events as far as I can tell. And I mean, to be honest, at least I feel like they were, kind of faithful to that. But I mean, just, was it a story that needed telling? That's what I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, like, here's the test, right? The most heartfelt moment of the movie is at the end when they're like in the water, and like, he's like freezing to death, right?
Yeah.
Matt Damon's character, I mean.
Right.
And I just did not care about them. Like, I just did not care what happened to him. I was like, if he dies, I literally don't care. Everything's gonna be fine. Like, and the fact that I was so emotionally divested from it that I didn't care about that, I think it tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, this is gonna sound weird, but if you've seen the movie, I feel like like, I cared more about the boat than I cared about him.
Yep. Yep.
Like just man, I don't know. Very very weird feel to me. Like there was
The
potential, and I don't know. Very very weird.
the only redeeming quality is like how much his crew cared about him. Like when they found out that he was alive,
Oh yeah,
like I could really feel their emotions there. But even that they undercut by having them be in space and him be on a boat. Like what? Like this, I cannot keep my mind grounded in the reality of this movie
yeah.
enough to actually appreciate it.
I feel like they literally cut out an entire movie's worth of explanation. Like it's I feel like they're trying to merge two movies here.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly what feels like it's going. Like
Let me ask you something. Did you? Sorry to interrupt. Did you see Shang-Chi?
yeah, yeah,
So it's like that. Like the first half of that movie is like an action movie, and the
Right.
second half is this like weird like fantasy like I can't think of a good word to describe it. It's just like two movies. That's what
Yeah.
this reminds me of.
yeah. Like somebody's sitting there flipping the channel back and forth, and I just have no idea what I'm watching. So
Yeah. So I mean, I think it goes without saying here, but F tier for The Martian.
F tier for The Martian.
All right. Why don't we cover Toy Story 2 next?
Yeah, that's a good call. Because I I do feel bad about that the whiplash of the vibe
Yeah,
with
sorry
the
about
last
that.
the last ones there. So I mean maybe we just keep this simple, keep this brief. Like I don't know how much we really need to say about it. I think it's just very clear to me and to you and hopefully to the viewers. Like we all know where this is headed, right?
On the count of 3, let's both say what tier we think this is going to be. We should
Yeah.
be in.
For sure.
And if we say the same thing, which I'm sure we will, because we're on the
Yep.
same page,
Yep.
then we'll know what tier it goes in.
All right, here
All
we
right,
go.
ready? 3, 2, 1. Batman.
Batman.
Tier. Oh
Yep.
my gosh! I mean,
I knew it.
obvious, so
It was-
obvious.
Literally the only thing it could have been. So, man.
Toss it in there. Batman tier with Batman Begins and Dark Knight, Toy Story 2.
Really,
I assume no explanation is necessary there.
right.
All right. You want to bring us into our final movie here?
Here we go. I'm really excited about this one. I've been excited about this one since the start. And I think, everybody else I'm hoping is going to have, just the exact same reaction when I say the next movie we're talking about is Joel the movie.
Mm.
We all know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about Joel the movie? I mean, first of all, 30 minutes of opening credits and advertisements,
Yeah.
studio intros and advertisements. You've got the John Fox makes an appearance
Oh,
in
the
the
John
movie.
Fox.
The John Fox, great performance by the John Fox.
Yep.
I mean, literally everything about this movie is the definition of perfection.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like literally monumental.
Monumental, absolutely. And I think the only appropriate response to a movie like this is for us to create a new tier
Yeah.
to hold it. And I
Yeah,
think it would
so-
only be appropriate for us to call it the Joel tier.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really all there is to it, I think.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of the movies we wanted to talk about. I'll just go over the list again. In the Joel tier, we have Joel the movie. In the SS tier, we have The Cider House Rules and National Treasure. In the S tier, we have Last Jedi and Mockingjay Part 2. In A tier, we have Desolation of Smog and Avengers. B tier is the B movie. C tier is La La Land. D tier is The Big Short and Home Alone 3. F tier is The Martian and Inception. Batman tier, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, Toy Story 2. And finally, not to indicate that Batman and Food tier are below these, just reading them after. Food tier, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Nacho Libre, Chicken Little, and American Pie. You have any final wrap-up closing thoughts about our tier list here?
I mean, this is literal perfection. You can feel free to email us if you would like to make any suggestions on things to add. We will not be accepting any feedback on things to move. We are 100% correct. and you're free to argue why you think you're correct instead if you disagree with us. But we will just roast you live on the next podcast. So looking forward to that if it happens. But other than that,
if you want to be roasted live on the next podcast, send us an email, alexandalex@joelthepodcast.github.io/alexandalex@joelthepodcast.website/index.html with your thoughts, incorrect as they may be. All right. So when you mentioned the Olive Garden quote,
yeah,
my thought was that we should come up with a quote from one of these movies that would go with here in the middle of this Olive Garden.
Ooh. All right, let's.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I'm drawn to the quote from The Dark Knight that Alfred says about the Joker, and I've got to look up the exact wording because I don't want to mess it up. I think you know if you know it, just go for it. But
I don't know I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the quote off the top of my head. So I will let you look it up. But I think there's a quote. No, I don't know. I feel like there's probably a lot of quotes from The Dark Knight that would fit with the Olive Garden. But I think you've got the one here, so I'll let you go.
Yep. Here it is. We're going to close out the episode with this. Some men aren't looking for anything logical like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn here in the middle of this Olive Garden.
And with that, I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this has been Joel.